Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling an absolutely crucial skill for modern developers, taking the security review of AI-generated code and turning it from a vague concept into a rock-solid step-by-step habit. As we rely more and more on AI to write our code, your ability to audit and secure that output is, quite frankly, your ultimate developer superpower. Okay, let's kick things off with a fundamental question. Why do advanced AI tools generate insecure code in the first place? You might think these highly sophisticated models would just naturally write bulletproof, perfectly secure scripts straight out of the gate, right? Well, not exactly. To answer that, we're mapping out This Explainer as a practical code review checklist for your workflow. We'll cover the AI security problem, then hit 4 specific checks: hard-coded credentials, permission scopes, input validation, and data scope. Finally, we'll wrap up with security as standard practice. Let's jump into Section 1, the AI security problem and why training data dictates output. Here's the deal. Because AI coding tools are trained on massive public code repositories, they absorb literally everything. And as we know, public code contains a ton of bad practices. We're talking insecure data handling, over-permissioned API calls, the whole 9 yards. The AI is essentially a giant sponge, soaking up both the brilliant solutions and the incredibly insecure habits of millions of developers. Now, what's really fascinating here is a realization from our source material. The tool doesn't actually intend any harm. It's not trying to sabotage you. It just lacks a built-in preference for security over convenience. It outputs patterns it's seen before, totally prioritizing a functional result over a safe one. So, the crucial takeaway is that it's entirely the builder's responsibility to bring that preference for security to the review process. Think of the AI as your incredibly fast-typing junior assistant. You are the senior developer, and you have to carefully review every single line before it ever goes into production. That brings us to check 1, hard-coded credentials. This is the first and arguably the most critical check on our list. You need to actively hunt through every single generated file for strings that look like API keys, passwords, or tokens. Seriously, think of an API key like the physical key to your home. You wouldn't go on vacation and just leave your house key sitting right there in the front door lock for anyone to turn, would you? Hard-coding a key directly into your script is exactly like doing that. And while we're on the subject of keys, a vital reminder, which we've touched on in previous modules, under absolutely no circumstances should you ever enter payment information when creating an API key. Gemini's free tier, for example, is more than sufficient to handle all the tasks your project should need. Just keep your credit card securely in your wallet. Now, if you do spot a hard-coded credential, don't just casually move it and call it a day. Follow these 4 strict steps to handle it properly. First, assume the key is compromised the second it appears in the code. Second, rotate that key immediately, revoke it, and generate a brand new one. Third, store the new key safely in script properties. And finally, update your code to reference that property instead of the raw key value. Moving right along to check 2, permission scopes. This is all about minimizing access in your manifest file. There's a massive trap we see a lot of developers fall into here. AI tools frequently declare broad, sweeping scopes simply because it's the easiest path to making the code run. For instance, the AI might casually request access to all the sheets in a user's entire account. But the secure approach requires narrowing that access down so the script can only touch the specific project file it actually needs. So your job is to verify every single declared scope in your manifest. Proactively replace those broad permissions with highly specific ones wherever you possibly can. You should never, ever ask for more access than your app strictly needs to function. Next up is check 3, input validation, securing those user inputs. In the interest of keeping things simple and getting you a working script fast, AI tools will frequently just skip input validation altogether. This leaves a massive vulnerability in its wake. It's on you to close that gap. You have to explicitly define the expected format and the acceptable range for each and every input. Add the validation logic that actually checks the incoming data. And, this is key, make sure it returns an explicit error if those criteria aren't met. Whatever you do, don't let bad data silently compromise your application. All right, let's head into check 4, data scope, retrieving only what you need. You need to carefully review every data query the AI writes. Make sure you aren't unnecessarily reading entire spreadsheets when you only need a handful of specific columns. Let's say you're pulling data from a spreadsheet with 30 separate columns, but your app only needs data from 5 of them. You have to specify that. Grabbing the whole sheet exposes unnecessary information. Remember, FERPA risks are incredibly real in educational settings, and limiting unnecessary data retrieval goes a long way toward keeping student and user info securely locked down. The fix is really straightforward. Explicitly request only the columns and rows you need. And always, always filter that data server-side before it ever gets returned to the client. The client side should never even receive data it isn't supposed to see. Finally, Section 6, Security as Standard Practice, making this review routine. This security review absolutely cannot be an afterthought or just a nice to have. It has to be a standard, non-negotiable step in your process. It should be exactly as routine as testing your application for bugs. You test for functionality and you review for security. They are a package deal. So let's recap your definitive AI code protocol. Run through these 4 checks: the credential check, the scope check, the input validation check, and the data scope check for every single piece of AI-generated code. And once you're done, rigorously document that review in your project notes. Why is documenting it so important? Well, this documentation acts as concrete evidence for your capstone submission. It proves that applying safe building practices isn't just something you know about, but a standard you actively and consistently uphold in your work. So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on before you start your next project. Is your AI-generated code truly yours before you secure it? Honestly, until you've audited it, vetted it, and applied this protocol, you're really just borrowing someone else's unverified work. Take ownership. Secure your code. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy safe building.